So now I want to introduce to you WPBF Channel 25 First Warning Weather Team, severe weather expert meteorologist Mike Lyons, and looks like Sandra Shaw, and I know, and Chris Martinez is manning the booth, is what I was just told. He's at the booth, so we've got Mike and Sandra here.
Thank you, Shane. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Yeah, Chris is in the booth. Vanessa is on her way up. Vanessa Vanette.
She did the morning show today. So if you watch this morning at 8, she's just getting off the air at 9, so she's on her way up.
And Brooke is working tonight, and Glenn is on a cruise, I'm told, right?
I think he may be. I think it was a rescheduled cruise from COVID, so
I think it's
full advantage.
A Disney cruise. And if you're going to go on a cruise or go on a vacation during hurricane season, this is the time to do it.
Yes.
Because the hurricane season, as you guys all know, is long. It goes on seemingly forever. It starts on June 1st, runs all the way through the end of November. But the peak months are still ahead of us. So that's why this event at this time is such a great time. It was rescheduled, as you know, from early June because we had that little tropical threat. I mean, it's been such an interesting hurricane season so far. We've had 3 storms.
Yes.
We had Colin develop just like that last week. We were tracking Bonnie seemingly forever, and Bonnie finally dissipated earlier today. It was a hurricane in the Eastern Pacific. We had Hurricane Agatha in the Eastern Pacific. It went across Mexico, got into the Gulf of Mexico, and actually became Tropical Storm Alex once it was east of us. So it's been kind of topsy-turvy with storms going from one basin to another. But my point about the length of the hurricane season and how this event is so important is because August, September, and October, those are the busy months. That's when we expect storms to pop. August, September, and October by far. And September is the most active month of the entire hurricane season. When you look at September all by itself, there are more hurricanes in the month of September than all the other months combined. And as you know, we expect this hurricane season to be quite active. Right, Sandra?
We do, and on the heels of all that, we've been doing some special in-depth reports. I don't know if you saw our hurricane special that aired, but it was a 1-hour sort of dive into everything hurricane, everything what you need to do to prepare, and some of the history. And so that's still available on our website that you can check out. It's really a great resource. I just went to the Bahamas to do a follow-up on Hurricane Dorian, which was the worst hurricane with 185-mile-an-hour winds, the strongest ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin. And I talked to survivors who actually stayed there in the midst of a Category 5 on the Abacos, which is right where it hit. What they said with still post-traumatic stress is, you don't ever want to go through that. It was a nightmare. You don't want to ever put yourself in that kind of situation. These people were lucky to be alive. Now, they were in a different situation. They're way out there. It would have been hard for them to evacuate anyway. But there was a 20-foot storm surge that went over Marsh Harbor. When we flew in, instead of trees, you just see the sticks standing up. Still, this is 3 years later. It was exacerbated because of COVID. But I mean, it's just a testament to the fact that sometimes we get kind of inured, we get kind of bored because we hear these warnings. You know, even the one where we rescheduled this, it was a lot of rain. It wasn't terrible, but you know, you just never know. And I think the thing is, when you see something like that, you know why we do what we do. It is human life, you know, and we are not going to exaggerate something. We're going to give you the facts. We're going to tell you what the criteria is. But if we're talking about a major hurricane, which has the potential to hit here, they all have different characteristics. Some of it can be flooding, some of it can be, you know, storm surge. We have been so lucky the years that I have been here with Mike. We have come this close so many times, and you just never know. And it's not that we want to sell fear, but we want to sell life. You know, we want to work together. We want to be prepared, and I think, you know, if you can be prepared, then you're going to have a strategy if the worst should happen. And you can also help your neighbor out too, who maybe doesn't have that strategy. So I think it's great that you guys are here. It means that you're leaders and you're taking the bull by the horns. So here we go.
And I would also just add what Sandra said in talking about Hurricane Dorian. If you were here in 2019, you remember how close we came to having that hurricane here, because here was this Category 5 hurricane, one of the largest hurricanes we've ever seen in terms of size, and its intensity was quite remarkable, 185-mile-per-hour winds, and it sat in the Bahamas. It sat there
36 hours.
for 36 straight hours. It didn't move.
If it had moved, it would have hit us.
Yeah,
If
and-
it had moved, this is so weird though. If it hadn't stalled over the Bahamas, it was going to hit us. I mean, that's actually what saved us, was the fact that it stayed over the Bahamas.
You'll recall, if you were here at the time, that the forecast from the Hurricane Center called for that storm to move right into Palm Beach County and parts of the Treasure Coast. And safe to say that if we had got hit by a major hurricane like that, we would still be picking up the pieces. Sandra's right. We don't hype the storm. We just give you the facts so that you can take whatever actions you deem are necessary. And that's why, again, it's important now that you figure out what you're going to do. If you've been through a hurricane, you probably know what you're going to do, and you probably know what you're not going to do. You've learned from your past lessons. But it's important to point out, and it's important to remember, that every hurricane is different.
Yeah.
And just because you went through one hurricane doesn't mean that the conditions are going to be the same. Hurricane Andrew, for example, a storm that hit in August of 1992, the 30-year anniversary is coming up. That was a wind event. That produced winds that were more like a tornado than a hurricane, and the wind damage there was horrific. But other hurricanes can be water producers. And now, as we look at the damage that a hurricane can produce and the loss of life that a hurricane can produce, 90% of the people who die from a tropical storm or hurricane is because of water and freshwater flooding. One of the stories I'm working on right now for our next Forecasting the Future story is about how a study of the 2020 hurricane season, a hurricane season that had 30 storms and 14 hurricanes, they found that hurricanes, because of changes in the climate, are now producing more water.
Yeah.
That's problematic in a big, big way. You get a storm right on top of Port St. Lucie, you're going to have a ton of rain. Got a lot of concrete here, a lot of roads here. That's going to be just exacerbate the flooding threat here in the area. So the bottom line is, as we head toward the peak of hurricane season, August, September, and October, let me thank the city of Port St. Lucie for putting this on. This is a great event. They've done it for a number of years. And the primary reason is to make sure that you are safe and that you know what to do. Knowledge, as they say, is power. And this great event today is an opportunity for you to talk to hurricane experts like the emergency management folks here in St. Lucie County, in the city of Port St. Lucie. They can answer your specific questions. I live here, for example. What's my threat from wind? What's my threat from water? Those are the kind of questions you want answered. If you're new to Port St. Lucie, it's even more important that you get those questions answered today. We have a booth. We'll be happy to answer all of your questions. Chris and Vanessa, I'm guessing, are there right now. We will be there momentarily. We would love to talk to you and meet with you because, again, as we approach hurricane season, our number one priority is your safety. That's what we talk about on television all the time. We want you to get the information, we want you to be prepared, and we want you to know what to do. Hurricanes can be big, hurricanes can be really scary, but once you have that knowledge, once you're powered with that information, then you can take that information and you can apply it and know exactly what to do. Get my supplies. Am I going to stay? I'm going to go. If I'm leaving, how far do I have to go? In most cases, not very far at all. So these are all the kind of questions that you can get answered today here at this event. And Sandra and I are just so happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you get that information, share it with your neighbors. You know, share it with everybody else who couldn't be here because you can be the leader and who knows, you could really be credited with, you know, you could help save a lot of people in your neighborhood or whatever. And just take what you know and say, hey, I'm going to do this for my neighbor. I'm going to do it for myself. And we're going to be well equipped here in Port St. Lucie. So thank you guys. We'll see you at the booth.
Yep. Thanks very much. Again, thank you again to the city for sponsoring this. And we'll see you very soon. Thank you, Shane. Okay. Okay.
All right, does anyone have any questions? They've still got a few minutes left in this session, so if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll run over to you with the mic, and you can ask, and they can answer. I can't jump like I used to.
On the spot.
Thank you so much. I am new to St. Lucie, and I live in Kings Isle, where we have a number of small lakes. And I do have a question regarding water that you just spoke about. With the amount of rain that is produced by hurricanes, the small lakes that we have here, what is the danger of those small lakes flooding?
Well, I think that would be a question for Shane or perhaps the Emergency Management Director for the City of Port St. Lucie more than me. But I can say this before they give the specific answer. Tropical systems can be prolific rain producers, and it is directly tied how much rain falls to their forward speed. So if you get a storm that slows down or is moving slowly, or worst case scenario actually stalls, you're going to get a tremendous amount of rain. And it doesn't have to be a big, powerful hurricane to produce a ton of rain. We've had a number of tropical storms, even depressions. You know, when you look at the scale, you have a disturbance, then you have an organized system called a depression, then the winds get about 39 miles per hour, and we give it a name, it's a tropical storm, and then winds get to 74, it's a hurricane. But there was a depression, just a weak system, winds about 35 miles per hour, called Claudette. It made landfall near Houston, Texas in 1979 and produced 42 inches of rain in 24 hours. So even a weak system can produce a lot of rain. That's why tropical systems should never be underestimated. But in terms of a specific question like that, I would refer to the experts here.
Yeah, when you're talking about the small lakes, like it's a HOA community, a Kings Isle. Those are maintained by the homeowners association. They actually have ways that they can drain them down if they were to be getting up to overflowing, to be able to drain them down. And obviously, if you're new to Florida, you've seen the canals everywhere. You see these big canals that we have. That's how everything gets flushed out of the city and back to the ocean where it belongs, is through the canal system. They actually have giant pumps which will pump the water, and I mean, when they're drawing them down as a hurricane's approaching, they draw them down to the really low. You'll actually see, you could surf on that water. It's moving so fast. That's how fast it's draining those things out to the ocean, and that allows for whenever all these small lakes in the HOAs, plus the rainfall that comes from the sky that naturally goes through the storm system and to the canals, it has somewhere to go, and then they can turn them back on and keep pumping to keep it down to minimize the amount of flooding, which is why you don't see, knock on wood, you don't see very often a lot of houses getting flooded. Streets get flooded all the time. That's what they're designed for. So when you see water in the street, that's how you notice your house is like up here and the street's down there. That's how we design stuff in Florida, because it's flat and it's sandy and it doesn't drain very well, right? When you get a lot of rain, it is intended to go into the storm sewer, even if it sits in the road for a couple of hours while it's draining into the storm sewer, then to the nearest canal, then to the nearest connector canal, and then out to the ocean.
And I would pose a question to you that you need to get answered today. Are you prepared for hurricane season? As we head toward the peak of the season in August, is your home ready? Are you going to stay in that home? If so, do you have the supplies necessary? Those are some questions you need to get answered today.
Correct. Are you going to evacuate? If so, where are you going to go? You don't need to go to Georgia or Tennessee. As a matter of fact, the worst thing you can do is be stuck out on the interstate because everybody's trying to go to Georgia or Tennessee, when you could have went 12 miles inland to a neighbor or to a friend's house that that has a real, sturdy concrete house with a good roof on it, and been just as good as getting stuck on the interstate trying to go to another state.
Yeah, let me just say something. Because of Hurricane Andrew, the 30th anniversary coming up in August, that changed everything in terms of how we prepare for hurricanes in South Florida from an emergency management standpoint to building codes. So homes now, especially those built after the new statewide building code went into effect in 2001, are much better able to withstand the high winds of a hurricane. I mean, impact windows. We didn't have impact windows back in the early 1990s. People didn't put up storm shutters. They put up wood or whatever. But now homes that were built after 2001 are much better prepared. We're one of the best prepared states in the country when it comes to wind. But again, the other issue is rainfall and the potential flooding that we can see, and we're seeing more and more of that. This study that came out on the 2020 hurricane season, again, found that those tropical systems produced anywhere from 8 to 10% more water because of changes in the climate.
Right. And one interesting thing that I learned when I went to the Bahamas when it relates to Dorian, the people who were on Man o' War Key, which was where I interviewed the survivors, if they had moved, 10 miles south to Marsh Harbor, that's where the storm surge hit, and they likely would not have made it. So that's why it's so critical to listen to the specificity of the forecast and exactly where we're predicting where the storm surge will be, how much, if you live in a floodplain, if we're gonna get a stalled out, storm that stays over, how much rain you're gonna get. The specifics of the forecast are really critical, and we answer a lot of those questions on our Facebook Live operations we put into effect. It's on your Facebook page. We're just live and we're updating real time. And then if you have a specific question, we can kind of micro forecast for you for the most part to the best of our ability, because it really is, it hits differently in different areas, and it depends on the positioning of the storm, and it depends on the timing, and there's so many things that go into it. So that's why we do county by county, and then within the county we do specifics as well too. So.
All right, I think we have time for one more question before we draw for the first prize.
Yeah, my question is, him and I live in a community with all double-wide mobile homes. I'd like to know, how would I know when the right time for me to leave that mobile home? Because I know some hurricanes are not as bad as others. From what I understand, my mobile homes have been up there since the 80s, and they've survived all the hurricanes as far as maybe carports went. But how would I know when to leave my mobile home and to be safe?
Well, that's obviously a personal decision that you and your family, you have to make, but you can watch our broadcasts, you can watch our Facebook Lives, as Sandra said, and also go to our website on our app, and we'll have all the timing. One of the keys that we'll show you often is when we expect the winds to increase in specific areas. And the forecasts from the National Hurricane Center have gotten so good in recent years. We show, when we're in our hurricane coverage, we show you the computer modeling and things like that, the Euro, the GFS, all these fancy names for these computer models, which are quite remarkable, that try to simulate the environment of the Earth. But the forecasters at the Hurricane Center are the best in the world. They outdo those computer models every day. Last year, they were remarkably accurate. Hurricane Ida, for example, might have been the most remarkable hurricane forecast in history. The very first advisory, Dan Brown, the hurricane specialist on duty, in his forecast said this storm is going to become a major hurricane. This storm is going to go through rapid intensification. In other words, it goes from a tropical storm to a hurricane really quickly. And he said it's going to make landfall right here. He was off by 5 miles on a 5-day forecast. It was an incredible forecast. So not every forecast is going to be right on the money. But the bottom line is the folks at the National Hurricane Center do a tremendous job. Our job in broadcasting is to let you know when you can expect those winds, to give you plenty of advance notice so that you can make a good decision, a smart decision for you and your family. Again, our priority is your safety, so we want to make sure you have that information well in advance. And we can say, for example, Sandra will be on, I'll be on, and we'll say, hey, in Port St. Lucie, you can expect those tropical storm force winds over 40 at, say, 5 in the morning. And then the winds will increase by 11 o'clock, increase even more by 1. We have specific graphics. When it's sunny and 72 degrees in January, February, and March, we're not just sitting around twiddling our thumbs and going to the beach. We're working on hurricane graphics because a hurricane for everybody, emergency management, and at the TV station, it's the Super Bowl. It doesn't get any bigger than that. These big weather events are what we live for, and we want to make sure that you have all that great information so, again, you can make the smart choice for you. So I would suggest, obviously, watch. We'll give you that information, but that's a decision that you have to make and something you need to think about now, because obviously you're going to have to leave, and it's like, where are you going to go? And you don't want to go too far. Shane said, you don't want to go to Georgia. Don't get stuck in a car. If you have family or friends 10 miles inland, that'll be a much better choice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.